Welcome to the Age of Quarantine. Hi, I'm David Castillo. Nice to see all of you on this wonderful Monday. Rainy, Halloween coming up, election coming up. It's a big week. Make sure that you have your plan. If you can already, start voting, do your thing. It's great to see all of you. It's been a little while. I haven't been slacking. I've been finishing a record and I bought a new synth. So, I've been having some fun with that. But today, I have the very, very amazing Blaze Bateh. Blaze plays drums in Bambara. Unequivocally, one of my favorite Brooklyn bands for sure. He's the fucking shit. So, here we go. Let's get Blaze on the show. And also, happy birthday to RJ Ober from Three Floyds. Cheers. Drinking a gumball today in your honor.
Hey, what's
How
up,
are you,
man?
bud? Cheers, bud.
I'm doing all right. Yeah, cheers. Let me get my Pacifico.
Oh, look at you. All right. Love it. Gumbo. Look at that. Big
Yeah.
guy. Tall guy. I love that. So you said to me before this that you think that this is probably our first conversation we haven't had over really loud music, and I think you're right.
I think so. Yeah.
I think this is the clearest I've ever heard you in my life. Not playing
For
drums,
better or for worse.
very clear when you play drums. But thanks for joining us today. Very, very cool of you.
Okay.
You know, we kind of just like to span people's, kind of musical journey here at Age of Quarantine over the hour, just kind of, go back from to where it started and all this. So, when I think of Bambara, I think, I honestly, a lot of times, I think of sort of these mix of sort of like Cramsey, Southern sort of influence kind of stuff,
Totally.
stuff, and like the Jesus Lizard. And I feel like a lot of people, there's a southernness to your, to your playing and your style that I think is very like evocative. And I'm like, these guys can't really like, they're not from here. That's the first thing that I thought. I mean, I knew
That's
that
cool.
the band was based here, but then I found out that you guys were from Atlanta, Georgia. So tell me, what was it like growing up in Atlanta?
It was it was really nice growing up there just because of the nature. There's so many trees in Atlanta, and Reed, the singer in Bambara, is my twin brother. So we would just be like playing together all the time, climbing trees and running around. I think that's one thing that I really appreciate about the South is the space down there, and you feel like you can kind of get lost in the environment. Versus, I mean, I don't know how it is growing up here, but I can imagine it's a lot more hectic.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up on Long Island in the suburbs of Long Island, and it was just like kind of strip mall country. Even though it is beautiful.
How far out?
It's about an hour away. I grew up by Jones Beach.
Okay.
Yeah, in a little town called Wantagh, and it's like, there's open spaces, and it was a pretty cool place to grow up and stuff. But like, it was pretty devoid of like any sort of city kind of culture. But an hour away, we had New York and stuff.
Yeah.
When did you start kind of getting involved a little bit in music? What were your earliest sort of memories of like, just enjoying music and stuff? Because I feel like Atlanta, the South has such a rich musical tradition, musical culture that comes out of there. So what were some of the things that you first interacted with?
We were fortunate enough to Reed and I started playing music together when we were like in 7th grade.
Yeah, you've been at it for forever because you had a built-in bandmate, you bastard.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I got a drum set really early because of that movie, That Thing You Do.
Oh, the Tom Hanks thing.
Yeah.
That thing you do. And there was the Shades dude.
Yeah, and I thought he was cool as shit. So I was like,
you wanted to be the coolest one, but you got hoodwinked by Hollywood to think that was the
drummer. Yeah, it took me years to find out that I was going down the wrong path. But yeah, so I got a drum kit, and then I convinced Reed to get a guitar and play with me. and then we just started playing, and then William, who plays bass with us, went to school with us too, so we started playing together around that time, like 2002.
Sure.
Yeah.
And that was just, you know, it's really funny. I forget who else I interviewed, but there was somebody who's like, yeah, I've been in one band, and it was a successful band, you know, that I interviewed on here, and it's like,
were they siblings or anything?
No, but like they just
Wow.
been at it since they were like kids, you know, and they just like met in middle school, and they just been in the same band the entire time. So have you ever been in another band, or has it always been Bambara or some iteration of this?
I have I think just by being a drummer, you get asked to join projects more. But yeah, for Reed, I mean, aside from Reed and I played in Liars briefly a couple years ago.
Yes.
But that was more like, you know, touring stuff. But
yes, and you played drums for Uniform for a tour as well, right?
Yeah, that was
like kind of later.
Yeah, that was last July.
Yeah. I remember it because just talking to Ben and stuff like that. He was like, "Yeah, we're taking Blaze, blah blah blah."
Oh yeah.
I was like, "Oh, he's amazing. That's great." But that's kind of like never been like, that's like moonlighting, right? But like you've never really been like the focus in reality. Like you never started another band. It dissolved.
Yeah, I've never started another band. No, I played in a band called Soft Spot for several years in Brooklyn.
Got it.
And Brian actually. Brian from that band plays guitar with us live now with Bambara.
Yeah, as the 4-piece and stuff like that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Because I was always curious about that. So let's just sort of say though that you and Reed have always been sort of orbiting one another, and in your normal lives, but in your musical lives, and really Bambara has been like the thing, right?
Exactly. And William too. Like William has pretty much been our brother in the whole thing since it started. So it's
incredible.
It's pretty nuts.
Yeah.
I can't imagine life without it. We were lucky. Me and Reed's uncle is a musician, and he actually played in a band with Mac McNeely from Jesus Lizard when he was in high school. That was he was like my favorite fucking drummer.
Yeah, destined to be. Yeah, and you know, it's obviously, you know, that is, you know, I like, as I stated before, I felt like the noise rock influence is definitely obviously in your music, and it was one of the things that sort of drew me to you guys early. But so you and Reed, and like, so you're all growing up and stuff like that, and I imagine that like this sort of aesthetic blend didn't just start in 7th grade, right? So how did you sort of kind of, you know, if it did, then I'm turning it off, Blaze and all of us, and we're out of here. But how did you kind of start discovering the kind of music that would start to shape you, right? Like, okay, I have my brother, we're checking stuff out together, we meet William, and now we're all in middle school, but what's starting to get you into kind of the music that's going to start shaping what this band would really become?
Yeah, so like at first it was always like we just listened to like, it was before the internet was really easy to navigate with finding music and everything, so we just listened to like pop radio, rock radio, you know. So it was like Offspring and Blink-182 and all that shit. Who played Saint Vitus last year, right?
We've had them all, baby.
Yeah. But yeah, so then I think the first like cool band that someone ever showed us was the Pixies, and that was like, it's just like a perfect band to get you into that stuff because it's poppy, but it still has an edge to it. And then from there, we got really into like shoegaze, My Bloody Valentine, and just kind of spun out from there. Like Birthday Party was a huge one for us, and I think when we were late high school, we really just kind of discovered what mostly like 80s post-punk stuff that really spoke to us.
Sure, yeah, definitely. And I mean, it's very evocative of kind of the stuff that you guys would go on to do. What was it like kind of, so, you know, you picked up drums and you had to kind of try and get Reed to sort of play guitar. What was it like kind of developing the chemistry and kind of coming together as far as like, you know, when I spoke to Keith from Every Time I Die, and his brother Jordan's in the band. He's like, Jordan was just always there. We just were doing everything together. So it was just not even a conversation, right? And you hear all these wild stories about chemistry with, you know, Alex and Eddie Van Halen, you know, R.I.P. Right,
Totally.
and things of that nature. What was it like, just kind of like learning new things with your brother? Would Reed be bringing stuff to you like, yo, I just listened to this and like check this riff out, or like,
Oh yeah, constantly.
hey, I just heard this drummer and like, what if we did something with this sort of beat? Like, what was it like just kind of growing up in that household? And
I mean, it was pretty much like that. Yeah, we were, especially being twins, we're like experiencing everything the same at the same time, you know. So if we hear something new and exciting, we want to share that with each other. And then my parents were really, really supportive, and they let us. Reed and I had our drums and guitar set up in the living room of our house.
wow.
Like you walk in the door, and then like our shit is right there. And then, but so we would like be playing video games and then just like get up and like play a song or whatever. And our parents would just shut the door. And back then we were fucking loud too. Like, we used to crank it all the way up, and then yeah. But it was very fluid. You know what?
You just don't know better. You just want the vibe.
You know it feels good, so you just keep doing it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we just it was really, really fluid. Just it was part of our interaction was just playing music and writing music. And
yeah. And you're living together, you're already kind of building it. It's really interesting. I think that for a lot of bands, there's just like these periods, these moments in time where like everybody's sort of like in tune with one another and like lockstep. Maybe it's like a certain scene, a moment, everyone's living with one another, or you're on the road and you're playing a lot. And so you create almost this familial interaction that or kind of breeds, you know, music. But you had the familial interaction and that bred music because you're actually family. Yeah. And William lived in like the same neighborhood and stuff. Was it really?
Yeah, he was like 5 minutes away.
So he would just pop by and be like, yo, we're going to just like jam for a bit, come hang out, play video games and play bass.
Exactly. Yep.
That's amazing. So what was it like kind of just like starting to play and stuff like that? What was the scene in Atlanta kind of like when you were just trying to kind of, you know, become a band that, you know, left your parents' living room?
It was hard because we didn't really know. We were so young. We didn't know like what the cool shit or the cool bars or cool bands were in town. So we only ever really saw like rap metal and stuff and like like all that whole movement. That was a huge thing in Atlanta. But during that time though, and towards the end we were starting to be aware of it. There was like Deer Hunter and Black Lips were starting to come up. Mm. And that was right when we went to college. And I wish we could have seen them when we were in high school, but there was a band called Sovis Radio that was phenomenal back in Atlanta during that time. And I don't know whatever happened to them, but they definitely expanded our minds musically. They were one of I remember even telling, I was probably like a sophomore in high school, and Mars Volta was like I was really into that at the time. And this band was totally going for like a 60s psych thing, but I'd never really heard that before. I remember telling one of them, I was like, dude, it was so awesome. You sounded like Mars Volta. He was just like,
yeah, it's
but
funny.
That was my only point of reference, you know, when you hear something that's exciting and you don't really know what it is. But
yeah, totally. It's just like the only thing that you have is like this sort of whatever kind of ballpark reference. You're young. You don't have like the depth of knowledge to be like 13th floor elevators or something, you know?
Yeah,
like,
totally.
You're trying to kind of just equate it to what you can, you know? I've had those moments with musicians I've admired, and the cool ones definitely will be like, yeah, man, or like you'll be like, why don't you check this out? And I'll be like, whoa. Yeah. Or even like somebody that I was just like at a show with, like there's this dude, Ron Grimaldi, shout out to Ron, who's like just like an OG of the scene. And we would talk about music, and I just think about those conversations, and I was like, "Wow, they were probably horrible for Ron, but he taught me. He taught me so much." So shout out to the people in the scene.
Yeah, shout out. That's amazing. Yeah, I've been in that situation a lot, and the other end of it too, and yeah.
Absolutely, and just have the patience and the grace. But that was really cool. So that band, which is a local Atlantic band, was like a gateway for some of that stuff. And honestly, there's a lot of moments in Bambara that are very like noir and have like a certain kind of like shimmer and psychedelia to it at different times. There's
Yeah,
definitely
we always want to make sure we like are putting the listener in a place. Like we want it to feel visual. We want it to feel like you're just transported into like an actual physical place. So
yeah, and like with the lyrics, is such a storytelling, like a moment, like you're like in a scene, you know.
right, exactly.
So when you're seeing these bands, doing your thing. When does it feel like Bambara really starts to become a thing? Was a band always called Bambara? When did it start really kind of forming into this sort of more idea of it?
We all went to school. We went to University of Georgia in Athens, and
I've been there.
oh, have you played there?
One of my good friends, Catherine McGuire, lives in Athens, Georgia, and she's wonderful. And it's a really cool scene down there, man. It's wonderful.
Oh yeah, it was perfect for us. I mean, that was the reason we went to that school essentially. It's such a big music town. But yeah, so we started playing as Bambara in Athens. Playing with band. Do you know Cinemechanica?
Yeah,
you know
I've heard that before.
Mm-hmm. They played Vitus before actually. They were like the older dudes in town that kind of took us under their wing and helped us like get on cool bills and all that stuff. And so we just started playing in Athens all the time. And back then we were it was just a 3-piece. And we always knew we wanted to move to New York. But I don't really know why. I can't really remember, but I think a lot of our favorite bands like Swans and Sonic Youth and just things like that kind of made New York this appealing location. And Liars too, we were huge fans. So yeah, after a few years of that, we moved to Brooklyn, and to the apartment we live in now, actually, which is it's me and Reed live in a basement together, and we in that space in between our 2 rooms is our studio. So
man,
it's a lot like
things haven't changed all that much.
No, exactly. It's a lot like how we grew up.
Does Colin still live with you?
He just moved out.
But, bummer, man.
But he was there for like 9 years with us. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So just for reference, Colin was a guy that I used to do Muay Thai with, and one day I'll never forget this. Colin and me are like hitting pads, and I'm like bum 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 bum, and Colin's very tall, and he's just like kicking me from like down the block. And he's like, "Hey Dave," between us, he's like, "You know this guy named Blaze?" And I'm like, "There's only one to me." Like, yeah. He's like, does he play in a band called Bambara? And he's like, "Yeah, that's my fucking roommate." Boom, you know. It was great. And that's how we were starting to get to know each other, because honestly, so all I knew about the band, right, or the way that it was sort of described to me was like, yo, there's these new kind of guys sort of on the scene here. They got this noise rockish, Nick Cave-ish sort of thing. I think that you would dig it. You should like listen to these guys, and you start reaching out actually to maybe kind of get on some shows.
Totally.
And I heard it, and right away I was like, whoa, this is really cool. Like, not too many people are doing stuff like this. And also I'm like, these guys are kind of good at doing this. They can't really like be from here, like I said before, which I thought was really cool. So you were sort of drawn to New York. Did you feel like Athens, like we kind of like hit a limit, or we wanted to tour some more, or what was?
I think it was mostly a lot of it was just we lived in Georgia our whole lives at that point and just wanted to see something else.
Yeah.
And I mean, Athens is amazing. We actually still record and mix down there a lot of the time. But yeah, we just kind of wanted to get out and see what was going on elsewhere in other parts of the country.
And it's kind of amazing to make these big life decisions as a band, like continue going on. Now, like for example, Keith and all those Every Time I Die guys, they live in Buffalo, and like that's just where they've been forever, and that's where they're going to be forever. But William had to come along on this little journey.
Yeah.
Well, so was there a lot of talk about it, like how we're going to do it, but just everyone was game right away, like, hey, we're going?
It's funny. I don't really remember much of that stuff. I just know that once we finished school, we were all right, time to go up to New York.
That's really funny. So it was What did you guys even go to school for? Because it feels like the band was always kind of the thing that was moving
Yeah,
forward, even though you did go to school.
yeah. We really just went because Athens was just so cool. We're like, and Georgia has this thing where if you have a certain GPA in high school, you get a free scholarship to that college. So
Oh, wow. So you're just like, yo, we can rock, we can study
yeah,
free
exactly.
in between the rocking, and then head off to New York. So
Yeah,
you arrived to New York with Bambara. How did you feel about what you found here? Because I feel like in New York, right, there's all this sort of there's a lot of things, right, that have been written and said about it. So many different eras, all that stuff. Everything from, I mean, now they have stuff like, meet me in the bathroom and stuff, and that was
oh
like
yeah,
shit that was happening,
yeah.
15 years ago or 20 years ago or whatever. So it's really interesting to sort of see how it's moved and changed. So when did you guys arrive, and did it sort of meet or exceed expectations? How did you sort of feel about like what?
It took a long time to figure out what the fuck was going on, honestly. Like, it's just so massive compared to where we're coming from, you know. We knew Bushwick was like the spot, we were told, you know. And we just started we started playing all these bills, and we did not fit with anybody at all. Like everybody was like for some reason all the bills we played on, everyone was a lot quieter. We couldn't find like heavy bands that weren't metal necessarily. So we were always just kind of never really fitting in with anything. And then we just started. It took about that was 2011, and I'd say probably around 2000, the end of 2012, beginning of 2013, we've kind of found some similar people to play with. And that was 2013. A Place of Very Strangers actually asked us to go on tour with them in Europe, which was fucking amazing. And
What would you consider be the bands that you found some kinship with, and where you started kind of seeing the band sort of fitting into kind of the kind of musical landscape?
we let's see, we were playing with Advaita back then, who was Weeping Icon now. We played with them a whole bunch.
Yeah, great band. Weeping Icon's great.
Oh yeah, fucking awesome. It's been so long. I'm drawing a blank. There's been so many generations of bands, you know.
Sure. They come and they go. There's a lot. I mean,
yeah.
I've been booking shows in New York City for probably 16 years, and on the island before that. I've always just kind of been an organizer of wanting to like make and do music.
You're like a historian of all that shit, probably.
Yeah, I know. I just know a lot. I mean, I've only lived in the tri-state area, right? Like my entire life has been between Long Island, Brooklyn, and New Jersey, like the shore of Jersey, and that's like this Bermuda Triangle, and that's just where I've been. So I've been, kind of privy to a lot of the things that sort of been happening in and around here. But
yeah,
there's so many things that people bring up, and I'll be like, that have happened at Saint Vitus, that have happened all over the place, and
yeah,
so much. Memory is a really weird thing, and in this time where we get to sort of reflect, like we're doing this right now,
yeah,
it's interesting to see the things that kind of pop up or don't, right?
yeah.
When did you feel like you weren't kind of visiting in New York, but you were really like a part of it? And
it took a while, and honestly, it wasn't my first job, but I think my second job here was working in the warehouse at Mexican Summer.
Oh,
and they share an office. That's where like the Sacred Bones office is, was back then. And through working like with like around Caleb all the time, and just everyone at Brad and Chris Hensel, I was able to I just learned a lot more about the scene and like things that I would actually be interested in, as opposed to just random shows that were happening in our neighborhood. And that was probably like 2014 maybe.
Yeah, and that's a really, I mean, Sacred Bones had an amazing label, amazing people, and a really great crew.
The best.
For a diversity of sounds and just kind of different things that, they put out, Anasazi records, and they put out, Zola Jesus and
David Lynch,
John Carpenter. Yeah, exactly. And just a really iconoclastic, amazing label for anybody watching, a true treasure of Brooklyn, and I mean an amazing place for you to kind of fall into there, because those
Yeah,
are the
perfect.
people that are making the kind of the cultural scene in Brooklyn really happen in a plethora of ways. So once you started kind of figuring that out, being a band in New York can be sort of difficult just in and of itself. Was
Yeah,
finding a place and a space and everything to be creative something that you found a bit more difficult than being down south? And like,
yeah,
how did it take you a while to kind of like feel like, okay, I can spread my wings here and like
forever, dude. Because I don't think we anticipated when we moved to like be starting from the very beginning all over again. You know, it was like we really, I guess we thought whatever reputation we had in our minds was going to come with us, and it totally didn't. And we just had to like really just start from scratch, and we had to work so many more hours. We were all bussers. I was a busser at the Standard Hotel for like 2 years. At they have a Boom Boom Room is the name of the club on the top floor. And it was funny because it was me and a bunch of other dudes that were noise musicians in Brooklyn, and we were just like picking up dirty dishes from all these rich people. But we
so
were.
similarly to you, the first job that I ever got in New York, I was a bar back at a bar called Fat Baby.
Oh, I
Um,
remember Lower East Side, right?
yeah, yeah, and I got the job because my friend Lyle, shout out to Lyle, was the manager there, and I was at this coffee shop, and Lyle's ex-girlfriend happened to be working there, called the Pink Pony, like around the block.
There's a
And
strip club called Pink Pony in Atlanta.
I, I've only been to Tattletales, and
Okay.
yeah, so but yeah, and it was a kind of like the same thing, you know. It was like everybody who was, you know, it's a comedy or a tale. It was like people from like, you know, Wall Street and stuff, like hanging out and spending a lot of money in that spot, you know. And
Yeah.
like, you know, Purcell from Youth of Today's girlfriend worked there, and like me and like Lyle, and Lyle is like,
Just siphoning that money off.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So it's like the common thing, but and those jobs sometimes you meet like the greatest people too.
Oh,
Sometimes,
totally, man. It was the best. I loved it.
yeah, for sure. And so, did those experiences and kind of like fighting for kind of your New York life, you know, which I think everybody sort of has to do, did
Yeah,
you feel that that started kind of like seeping into your music and your
I
sort
think
of
so.
approach? Because I feel like the band overall, like the arc of it, is like it actually gets a bit like less noisier, I think,
Yeah,
or maybe more controlled. I don't want to say that in a way. I feel like it just became a little more succinct, and
I
then this
yeah,
noirness sort of starts coming out. That feels like I should listen to this while I'm walking home at 4:30 in the morning after getting
sick.
fucked.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I haven't really thought about it, but that really is a good way to describe it. I think we were confronted with so much stuff we didn't know really. We felt kind of powerless at the time, and the more you're here, the more you're kind of harness your place. Maybe that had a lot to do with it. I didn't really think about that. The other thing is we didn't know what the fuck we were doing on a lot of our early stuff recording, so we just did everything through. We knew we wanted like sounds and textures, but we just ran everything through guitar pedals. And now for a lot of that, we actually use real instruments or um, just more refined sounds, trying to accomplish the same thing but with a more high quality sound. But yeah, it was. I think it's important to have that fight at the beginning because you feel like you deserve it or earned it when you have some kind of peace here. And
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you've already seen like at any given night, there's so many bands, so many performers, so many things, people just trying to create. So
yeah,
there's a lot of opportunity, but there's a lot of noise to sort of cut through and to do that. So, you know, to me, when I started like listening to the band, it was probably not until, I don't know, maybe like 5 or 6 years ago. And
uh-huh.
before you, yeah. And then you kind of put out that sort of subsequent full length, the one with like Jose and like those songs and stuff. And
Oh yeah,
I was like, wow. I felt like everything sort of took a big step there, not just from like from a songwriting perspective, I think things started to get a little bit tightened up and
Yeah.
a little bit, kind of like this is like a full length. It was a full picture to me of like what this band should try to be. And I really feel like on that one, it was like these guys are good, and I like this Blaze dude. He's wonderful, and I like how they play, and it was cool.
That's
But
awesome.
then I felt like it was like this is really this is the band really rounding out all the edges and kind of giving that to me. And it seemed that that record really took you guys up a step and got you noticed a lot. Other bands starting to take you out on tour like Isles and other things like that. Could you talk a little bit about just bringing that record together? And that to me seems like your real like New York period record, the one that kind of like stepped you into like kind of a new realm.
Cool. Yeah, that was like I think we definitely knew exactly where like as I was saying before, like building a space, we knew what world we wanted to be in, kind of like this dark noir Western feel. And so when you kind of visualize that all the choices you make are corresponding with that atmosphere and that environment. And so a lot of the ideas kind of just fell into place, not easily, but we were confident with the choices. And for that one, we were writing, I think that was the first one where every song wasn't just written either in like a band jamming format or just Reed coming up with something on the guitar. It was kind of all of us coming up with bits and pieces and building songs out of those. And that was really cool.
So the approach kind of changed for that particular record. So usually you would just kind of get into the room and kind of jam it out, and like maybe Reed would bring a riff, but it was sort of kind of coming from different places.
Exactly. Yeah. We kind of embraced little idea, like we started writing on the computer a lot more, and then we would bring it to the band and flesh it out. And we took it, we had like the bones of it, and then that's when Reed and I went on tour for like 3 months with Liars, was in the middle of that. And I think during that period, there's a lot of downtime in hotels and stuff, and Reed and I would just be on our computers editing songs and coming up with ideas and stuff and sending them back to Willie. And by the time we got back, we had a pretty full idea, and that's when Reed started writing the lyrics. And he likes to write lyrics all in one sitting, not one sitting, but like he'll lock himself in the room for a month straight and just to be absorbed in that atmosphere.
Yeah, I read somewhere that he kind of like did that a lot, and just like, I don't know if it was for that record, the one after that, but the one that just came out this year, which is to me another step up.
Thanks.
That like he like did that and like kind of rushed it to the finish line. Like he was like, I finished the day before.
And it was all this. Yeah, this was another situation where we went on tour with Daughters for like a week or something, and like a couple days passed. Oh yeah, I love those guys. A couple days passed, and then that's when I left for Uniform tour for a month. And during that, it was like exactly a month, Reed just sat in his room in the basement and didn't really leave. He just had like random pictures that he picked out from thrift stores and used them as kind of like prompts, and wrote since it's a narrative album with an arc and everything, it's he wrote it all. Then the day I got back from Europe with Uniform, we kind of talked about everything, and then drove down to Athens the next day and recorded it.
That's amazing. It's just amazing when you really get into playing and life and all this stuff. It becomes really difficult to sometimes find the spaces to actually like make the fucking music, right? Like, you're like, I'm playing, I'm going over here, I'm doing this. And, not for nothing, but you were just talking about going on tour with Liars. Like, you and your brother playing in a band that you just said 20 minutes ago was an inspiration to you guys. How did it feel kind of playing with them? And during that time, did that give you guys like a little bit of like, wow, like we're here, we're doing that, and we could be doing that for ourselves in our own band, and we're getting closer? Did it feel like there was just like did it come up inspiring?
Exactly. Yeah, it was the first time I've like seen everything work like everything was in place and working really well, you know, as a musician. And, it was exciting, yeah, because Reed and I felt like we were very close to getting to that, getting at least to that level where we could tour constantly and just make records and that be your lifestyle. And it definitely excited us and put a fire under us even.
Yeah, that's great. It's something to see, you know, stuff from the inside out and seeing, you know, I've been lucky enough to share the stage with a lot of musicians that I really admire and stuff like that. And just watching other people operate, the way that they work, what they do, how they approach, you know, their live show or just all sorts of stuff outside of it. You can really just pick up a lot just by being even next to them, much less playing.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah, and like it was just crazy because it was our first time playing big festivals too, and you would just be put in these rooms with like we rode in a van with Steve Albini and we who else did we see? I mean, just it was, I'm drawing a blank, but there's just so many people that you were just like sitting next to and eating, and it was just like no big deal, and that was really cool for us to see that. And then after Shadow, or maybe it was after Stray. No, it was Shadow because COVID was after Stray. we started doing some of those festivals, and it was really exciting feeling that same type of thing happen.
Sure, for sure.
Much smaller level, obviously, but
yeah, totally. But it just kind of shows you like the possibilities and like what you can do, and you're literally sitting there writing in between the moments that you're experiencing these sorts of new sort of just scenarios and just picking up a lot of stuff when you're in the same room as great musicians and great folks. There's always just things to notice and whatever, right?
Okay.
And that's always something that's really fun, and weird, wild stories and everything like it, right? So you guys go, you make this record, it's great. And then I feel like, I'm going to be straight with you. And in my opinion, I was like, dude, before Strands, I'm like, this band is really getting fucking good. And you guys are starting to pick up some steam in Brooklyn. Now, I know that I book, and I'm like, dude, this band is, and I'm seeing it. And that's when you guys, I think, really flipped the power switch too. Or you guys were, you know, more of a four-piece.
Yeah.
I think at that point, and then, you know, Reed becomes more of just like the singer.
Yeah.
Which is actually, and then that, I think, also just from, you know, the performance aspect, which, you know, for me, I have to, you know, like now I got to put on my, like, you know, my work hat, my booking hat, and I'm like, dude, like, Reed is just the singer, the four-piece band, I'm like, they're sounding bigger, they're sounding tighter, the performance is just taking another leap, and the material, and I'm like, all these things are to me are like setting the scene. And I was like, I felt like it was, besides in Brooklyn, I felt like it was a little bit, I was like, can somebody, like a booking agent, a manager, can somebody fucking get with these guys to really like do the fucking shit? Because like they're so fucking good. I'm like, why aren't you doing this? I literally, between me and you, I had this conversation probably 2 or 3 times. I'm like, you should pick this up, because somebody's going to, and you're gonna look dumb. And that's not my job. I'm just sitting here like, hey, I'm looking at it, and then something kind of remarkable happens to you guys, and something that's deserved is Idols starts taking you guys on tour. What was it like when you kind of got that call? Because obviously they're blowing up in the UK and in Europe, but now they're starting to do that here in the States, and they want you to come play with them.
Yeah, I mean, that was a huge turning point for us, because like Shadow had come out and we felt some progress from it, but it was starting to die down, and they asked us to open for them at Rough Trade, and
George from Saint Vitus was at that show. And
he was really?
Like, both bands are so fucking good. He told me about the following day.
That's awesome. Yeah, that was a great show, and we played, and then Idols went on and they fucking killed it. And afterward, they talked to us and they were like, "Yeah, so we want you guys to come on tour with us in like a few months." And we were like, "Cool," until you know, there's so many promises in this industry. It's like until you see it written out, you don't really buy it. And then, they reached out to us and we did the full U.S. tour with them, and it was like every single show was sold out, I think, it was really cool seeing them at that point in their career, because they didn't really know what to expect coming to the States.
Yeah.
And just seeing that kind of support and enthusiasm was amazing, and we got to be there for that ride and play for all those rooms. And yeah, and then we're supposed to go out with them in June next year in Europe, but who knows what'll happen. But
yeah, well, we'll keep our fingers crossed for that, obviously.
Yeah,
good things in the works, but you know, no promises here. But at the same time, I think that this what we find on this program oftentimes, like, you know, is like musicians helping musicians is often 90% of the time like the way, right? Like we had Nikki from Nothing in the comments.
Oh, I love Nikki.
Right? And yeah, the best. But it's like, you know, they're always taking great bands out on tour. Idols is taking great bands.
They took us out
great,
for a few days in Europe.
Great bands have taken Nothing out on tour, you know, and vice versa, you know.
Yeah.
And these are the things, and they obviously saw a lot of quality in what you guys are doing and brought that. And I feel like then when that happened, things started kind of moving a little bit more for you guys as far as like other maybe folks within an industry point of view taking attention. But more than that, it was like you opened for this band, but you were making your own fans. You started converting a lot of fans into Bambara fans, and I love to see it. Yes, these motherfuckers got this shot. And like, I know they're going to do great because I've seen it. I just saw it. I'm just like, I just need more people to see this, because when they come to Vitus, I know that we could have like so much success on just a Bambara show. They just need to do a little bit more in front of other people, maybe with other bands, you know?
Yeah.
That's when you develop your following.
So yeah, all those bands that we mentioned that taking us out was just always such a huge help, and forever indebted. But man, yeah, the last show we played in New York was that Vitus show. It was like holy fuck, it's almost a year ago.
Yeah, man. I think it was in November.
Yeah.
I think it was in November last year. And to kind of, you know, to kind of sort of, you know, show the success of that is like that Saint Vitus show that you guys played, which you headlined, picked out all the bands for. We worked on that together. And you could not, I mean, it was sold the fuck out. It was amazing. And you guys were amazing. And the whole night was incredible, you know? And I'm like, this is what we need. This is what we deserve for you know, to me, I'm going to call you a Brooklyn band because you've been here long enough, but a band that kind of, you know, like you said, you didn't come here, you know, you weren't liars or something that moved from here with this status. You kind of came here and then you worked your way all the way up. And I love to see that, you know, and to be, you know, in a little bit of a part, right? Like as a booker, you're like,
oh, dude, you've been so helpful. It's ridiculous.
You're just trying to figure out like who's good, who's doing great stuff.
Yeah.
And you know, kind of continue on to grow and stuff. So all this amazing stuff happens, right? And like we're feeling good. We're like Bambara's making moves and stuff. And then what was the like kind of building into the next record, Stray, which is amazing, that came out this year? What was the writing process like? You guys kind of stick to the same sort of formula that brought you to this more refined place?
A little bit. It was definitely more of a time crunch. Like we actually had a strict deadline this time, which we never really had before. And so we just ended up working like 8-hour days in the basement pretty much every single day. Me, Reed, and Willie just constantly tweaking like every microsecond of everything. And once we had all the music done, it was about 6 months of that, I think. Once the music was done, or at least demoed in the basement, that's when we went on the Daughters tour, and then I went on Uniform, and we came back and went down to Athens, and then just pretty much did the whole rest of the album in like 3 weeks.
Wow. So when you guys go down to Athens, who makes your records? And you know, it seems like this long-standing relationship. Who makes your records? Yeah. And like, you know, you haven't changed it, but the output and the quality of it has really changed as far as like the songwriting, which is really cool. But you kept the same producer since, I mean, what, like 10 years?
Yeah, we've worked on and off with him. Yeah, for about 10 years. Yeah.
And who's this person? What's their name?
His name is
Studio.
his name is Drew Vandenberg, and he's amazing. He works at the studio called Chase Park Transduction in Athens, Georgia, and he's just like a homie, and he understands our process, and he's willing to work insane hours because mixing with us is a fucking nightmare, and he's just there for all of it, and yeah, I'm so thankful for him. But yeah, so we did Stray Shadow and everything. He just mixed, and we recorded it with Andy Chug from Pop. He was on Pop 1280. I don't know if you knew Andy.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we recorded with him, then mixed it with Drew, and then for Stray, we just did start to finish everything with Drew. And,
Got it.
Yeah.
And let's talk about Stray, because I love this fucking record, man. It's great.
Thanks, man.
I think it's one of the better records I've heard this year. Definitely in the pantheon. And I just think it, again, I feel like what I was saying before. I don't want to say it's more succinct. It's a little bit more edited, but I also feel like it just lets everything else shine, right? It lets your brother's voice shine. It feels like everything on the record is very consequential, including the louder bits, the noisier bits, or the more kind of quicker, kind of like, punky bits. They all feel like they have the place. But I also feel like it creates an even deeper kind of noir, sort of cinematic sort of thing that you guys are going for. What was it like just trying to get to that more succinct place? Is that just like something that you guys were constantly striving for?
Yeah, we knew we wanted to incorporate some different instruments on this one, and like for that noir feel, we had a trumpet in a couple songs.
I love that. The brass is great. What's that Death Croon song? I love that. That one's fantastic. And also the other thing that you guys added too was more of the female singing along with and I love that track towards like the back half of the record before, and then it kind of, I'm like, oh, this is just here now.
Yeah, we kind of wanted it to be a thing that's just a part of the record, like this kind of Greek chorus thing that comes in and out and responds to Reed and just texturally it works really well. Like Leonard Cohen does it really well. He's a huge fan of his, and I think that was a lot of the inspiration there. But those just having other musicians involved was a really awesome experience, because you can write these parts and tell them to do it, but automatically their humanity is going to come through and their own nuance, and it's going to shape and color the sounds a lot better than your MIDI keyboard or whatever,
Yeah, that's really cool. So how did you kind of find the people to play trumpet and sing along? Was it the same female voice? Was it the same person who performed on the previous record in Stray, or is it different folks?
It was different. We wanted to kind of have our own sound, a different sound for this one. Our friend Lizzie Wakefield sang on Backyard on Shadow and Everything.
Yes, that's the track, the second to last one.
Yeah, and but we definitely wanted two female vocals harmonizing. I can't remember, but I think they're the same interval too for every song, just so it feels like a consistent feeling. So yeah, we had our friend Drew Citron sang on. Was she on all of them? Yeah, she was on all of them.
Well, she's amazing. Great performances too, and I always like to point these things out, because these additional musicians, ancillary to like the core band, but they create so much too. And like the brass, who played the brass? Because that was also beautiful.
Oh yeah, that was this dude Sean Smith, who we just met randomly. He lived on our block, and our friend that we had in town from Atlanta saw him across the street and started talking to him, and it was like the week before we knew we wanted to record some brass. So
I love that's New York right there. That's the
exactly
of a place of that
yeah
place.
That happens so much here. I love it. You just put something out, and then it comes to you somehow in some form. And then what other instruments do we have? Can't remember, but yeah, just having those people was fucking, I loved it.
Yeah, it really adds a lot, but without doing too much. You know, it's like in reality, the core of these songs is really just, you know, Bambara, as you know, but then just having more consistent, like, kind of other presences. I also feel that, especially with the female vocal, getting back to it, it was just so successful on Backyard, and then seeing it sort of stretch out, it almost feels like a new character introduced to the to like a TV show or a movie. You know,
Oh,
like,
cool.
who is this person? And with what Reed writes about and the really kind of literary sort of like kind of prosy sort of like style that like he kind of, you know, kind of embodies, it really it feels like this awesome sort of counterpoint. You know, I know that you don't really like write the lyrics and stuff like that, but was it always really, you know, but you're brothers, you're close to the situation, was it always really like, hey, I'm gonna write this for like a female voice and that's going to be this part or whatever, or was that really figured out a lot in the studio?
That was like during the demo process. Like, we knew we wanted to have a call and response, and those demos are hilarious because it's us singing falsetto and it's so fucking but yeah, like, it was one of those things where we're like, I don't know if this is gonna work because it sounded so awful with us singing it. So when we finally had Drew and Andy come in, it was just like, fucking thank God it worked.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think that that's always the thing, right? It's, you have something in your mind's eye and you're like fucking committed to it.
Yeah.
It doesn't always work, but when it does, it's like amazing. You're like, oh yes, I knew.
Oh, it's the best feeling in the world. Yeah,
for sure. And it's it's just, it provides such, you know, beautiful moments. And I think with now, you know, having these sort of quiet, these moody moments, the up moments, the loud moments, really the dynamics of the record are just, you know, you really feel it more, whether it be tempo, whether it be loudness, you know, guitar, whether it be like, you know, something more overdriven or whatever have you. What was it like? Did you really try and pick the moments, or we're going to be like, okay, now we're going to kind of really explode and have that body? Was that like a thing that we want to build these dynamics even more? We were like kind of here, we want to go from
here. Because for us, like, we know we want the whole album to feel like one experience, so it's exciting to see how far we can push that experience into like a quiet, groovier song, but still maintain it when you're going to like this balls out like punk song. And so it's like everything is within this realm, and so you're just kind of challenged to maintain that atmosphere, not lose it, and see how far you can push in every direction. And so yeah, that was our goal with this one, you know.
Sure. And it's like, did you ever find that there were certain things that didn't work when you try and, like, you know, you're pushing to the extremes, right? You're like, how far can my voice go, my drumming go, or something? And sometimes it's about editing, and sometimes it's about really experimenting to go wider. And sometimes you go wider, not everything is going to really like happen, right? Were there any kind of interesting things that you're like, man, that's kind of good, but I don't think it works?
Yeah, I mean, every single day in the basement, we add so many layers, and then when it comes time to mixing, it's really just taking things away. And yeah, there were so many layers that just did not make it at all, because it was we just didn't need it. You know, you can suffocate a song with too much shit. And
yeah, I mean, I've been thinking about that and learning about that a lot, because I've been making my techno music, and you know, and I've been recording a lot of it on my own now, more than I ever have before, because, you know, COVID and things of that nature. And I was listening to Q-Tip and Rick Rubin talk, and Rick Rubin just talking about how he just takes things away more than anything else.
Yeah.
It, like, more than anything he's ever done, he just goes, I just take things away more than anything else.
Yeah,
like,
when you're the person creating it, I think you get carried away, and you don't realize how dense it's becoming in a negative way, because you're hearing all these nuances, but for anybody else, it's just kind of weighing everything down. So the producer plays a great role in just being like, really, like, just showing what the song actually needs, you know?
Yeah, and like what the core value of what the song is. Because they were talking about how on Brick's like hip hop records and stuff, you know, you would always have like the scratches would be really loud and everything was mixed really loud, but there wasn't a lot of stuff, so it sounded great. And his point being just like, hey, we got to have the things that count, and like everything else doesn't really matter. And like, I'd rather take a snippet that's 10 seconds that rules and make a song out of that than like everything else.
Yeah.
And I thought that that was really, you know, super poignant, and something that and, you know, he talked about it across genres too, you know, and like kind of just developing technique for each thing, including like Slayer and metal, and how he was like, all of the rock drumming in the 80s, you know, it was super like, poof, poof. He's like, I just needed to take away the whoosh so you could hear,
yeah, more direct,
and then it would work, you know. So to me, Bambara really, you did that so much for your sound, and maybe it was Drew and a combination of you guys, and I think you got to like that better place, and I think that's the big achievement of the record.
Thank you. Yeah, because we knew from the beginning that we didn't want to consider like playing these songs live. We didn't want that to stifle the writing process at all. We just wanted to write with no boundaries, and then live we'll figure it out somehow. Because I mean, a lot of the time I like the songs to be a little different live anyway, have a different experience. So without those boundaries, it's easy to get carried away, and so we had to chop a lot down. But I think because of that, we got to some really cool places that we wouldn't have otherwise. And it, I think we'll probably keep that kind of spirit going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really great, and I think I can speak for anybody else who's listened to that. It's a mature, leaner, but I think emotionally wider Bambara than we've experienced before, and I really like it. I think that that's really where it kind of like shines and stuff like that. So we have about like 3 minutes left before we end, and Instagram sort of kicks us up. But you know, obviously, COVID is sort of taking you out of doing the normal things, and we're here talking and stuff like that. What was it like to just really quickly like release this record into the wild during this uneasy time? And you know, how do you sort of feel about it? And it seems a lot of people are listening, and it's really great because, you know, people need music to listen to still, right?
Yeah.
So with that decision,
I'm thankful that like we were supposed to be gone pretty much this entire year touring, and I'm just thankful that we were able to play most of the U.S. tour, and just be able to connect with people with these songs. I guess it was probably for 3 weeks we were able to do it, because a lot of our friends, they haven't been able to tour at all on anything.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to like really focus on the fact that actually did happen, and
sure.
Yeah, it was. We had an awesome time. I think our last show was in Dallas, and then we had to kind of pack it up and come back home. I remember actually texting with Ben Greenberg, because they were out on the road too, and we were talking about like the shows, because the attendance started dropping, and then you start to feel irresponsible, like we just need to cancel because we don't want people to congregate on our behalf. So, but yeah, it was a crazy time to release a record, that's for sure.
Yeah, for sure. But you know, I for one, and I think for everybody, you know, watching in the comments, we're really thankful for it, and appreciate it, and support Bambara, support artists that are making things that you love in this time, because it's really important. And we're sitting here enjoying, even though we can't be all together. I'm still sitting here, you know, listening to Serafina and Death Groons and great songs like that. So Blaze, dude, this has been awesome. It's great catching up with you, man.
Yeah, man.
You know, wish you the best, and you know, as soon as you know we're able to, you know, you guys got a home at Saint Vitus, and we'll love to have you back.
Can't wait. So have a good
cheers.
one. Thanks for having me.
Right?
Yeah.
Peace.
Cheers.